Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of American Grit with myself, Tim Jensen. We have a great episode for you today. We talk a lot about vulnerability on this program, and we bring some very interesting guests to talk about their lives, the things that they've been involved in, their experiences, and what has shaped them into the things that they are doing today and the passion that they have in the work that they do. Today's guest is another one of those individuals that I think you're really going to enjoy. You may have heard of the program before in the veteran community called Warrior's Heart. But today we're going to meet the man that was part of standing the whole thing up and the idea of bringing it to existence. And that's Tom Spooner. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Tim. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. It's a bit of an interesting, way that we have met many, many years ago at a golf outing.
Yeah, up in Illinois.
Yeah. It was at I forget what the event was. It was raising money for some charitable aspect, and you guys had a table there. And I believe it was like your first year of operation. And,
it was.
And then we met, and, from there, like, you guys just exploded into this extraordinary, retreat center that is bringing veterans and other individuals into, a place where they're able to find a little bit of peace of mind, some therapy and breaking free of these addictions that are really dragging these individuals down.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's I run the island of broken toys. You know what I mean? That's how I'm the last house on the block. Whenever they've tried everything else, other modalities or first time, trying, it's they're my guys. Yeah, they come see me.
Absolutely. Now, what got it that got you to the point that you were like, this idea of a Warrior's Heart facility on a massive ranch, a piece of property, is going to be a beacon of hope for individuals that have gone through every aspect of trying to find sustainment. What was the impetus of that? What was the experience that you had went through?
Yeah, so for me, it was Warrior's Heart is pretty much my life story. Everybody says overnight success or something. It's right. Like, all your life in one night, kind of deal was the success. So, it was all based off my military background. It was based off me getting sober back in 1992. It's a huge passion of mine, just helping this population, perfectly suited for it. Because you know how we are. We don't really listen to anyone else except us, Right. I mean, we're getting better at it, you know what I mean? But especially there. But it was basically all my career, me getting sober. I mean, that was my passion, my two passions, my family, and then meeting the Lannons, Josh and Lisa Lannon. I couldn't have started it up. But the first idea of Warrior's Heart, before it was called Warrior's Heart, in 2007, I wrote it down on a piece of paper. So Warrior's Heart came into existence fully, in April of 2016. But in 2007, I'd injured my back again, and I'm like, I'm not going to recover from this one, so what am I going to do? So I wrote out on a piece of paper, I called it the compound, and the wild thing is Warrior's Heart is exactly what that piece of paper was, minus the physical therapy. We don't have physical therapy out there yet. But my back got better, and I continued deploying, and got out of the Army in 2011.
So a background in the Army, what does that look like?
So background in the Army was my motivation for coming in the military was I have a grandfather that was a World War II vet. I have an uncle that was a 3-tour Vietnam vet. I mean, I'd always just wanted to come in the military. So I came in 90. I was in the 82nd and right into the Gulf War. So was in basic training summer of 1990. That's when, Iraq invaded Kuwait and all of that. So by the time I got to my unit in like November of 90, was immediately go to Saudi Arabia and then right in the Gulf War. So that was my entry into, even though, that combat wasn't nothing like, for me,
was that like
post 9/11.
A 2-week vacation you never expected?
No, it was, it was, like I said, it was not anything compared to post 9/11, but it was like coming straight from the street, and into a combat environment, man, it was significant for me. And, so I was in the 82nd from 1990 to 1995, and then from 96 to 2001, I was in 7th Special Forces Group as 18 Charlie, an engineer. And then from 2001 to 2011, I was out at Delta as an operator, Did 12 deployments, 40 total months time in combat, and then retired in 2011.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, what what was the most fascinating things that you were involved in?
The most fascinating
Yeah,
things.
like if you were to sit back and like Tom is 10 years older than he is today, and he's reflecting on his life, and it's that one moment that comes up like, oh man, that was one of the coolest things I ever did.
Yeah, man. So it was. I got a lot of them. I'll try to.
I
I'll
bet.
kind of walk through, and I had such a different kind of experience in the military because I got sober in '92.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had on a different path.
How
So
old were you in '92?
I was 22 years old.
22.
Yep, whenever I got sober. So I was really screwed up at a young age.
Yeah.
And so, I used to have, when I got sober, I'd have guys say, well, so young, getting sober is like, I've spilt more than you drank, and I was like, well, if you'd have drank it, you'd have got here sooner, you know what I mean? So it was like, so anyway, my career, man, I was just, I'm the most blessed dude I know. You know what I mean? Yeah, I worked my ass off, you know what I mean? And a lot of willingness. But I enjoyed all my time in the 82nd. And my time in the 82nd was amazing because there was a lot of Vietnam vets, like legends, like guys that I had read books about, when I was a kid. Here they were as the battalion sergeant major, brigade sergeant major. I was like, I read about that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was a big lot. I enjoyed my time there. And then whenever I was in 7th group, so I had 10 years of peacetime. I had almost 11 years to prepare me for 9/11, post 9/11 stuff, which. But man, I loved my time in group. Whenever I was in group, I wasn't one of those guys that was like, oh, screw this place, I'm going to the next one,
Yeah.
And I loved it. I just went out to selection just because I didn't want to regret of not trying.
Yeah.
Didn't really think I'd make it. But without a doubt, man, the culmination, back to your question, was like that, from 2001 to 2010, my last deployment. I mean, that was living the dream, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
whole,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of tragedy, everything that comes with war, but
Yeah.
just like I always talk about, man, that's what I was built for that stuff, man. I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I hated the horror, you know what I mean? All of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was made for,
Yeah.
man.
Then you had to hang the boots up, man.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That
what was that
hard.
transition?
That was hard.
Right. You're sober, right?
Yep.
You're still going through that. You've got years under your belt, and
Yeah.
but you're now adding a whole different stress to your life
Yeah.
of leaving parts of your identity, right?
Absolutely, man.
And going into the civilian space as a combat Delta operator. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like?
There's a lot, but it was so rewinding to that during that time frame, say 2010. So I was a super lifer, man. Like I was going to go 30 years. They were going to have to kick me out. So I'd had 21 years in, but I had broken back surgery, re-injured back, shoulder surgery, leg surgery. You know what I mean? I was busted up good, and I couldn't wear kit anymore without taking narcotics, and that wasn't going to work for me. So I'd effectively avoided any bullshit job my whole career. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to get out because if I can't wear kit, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not pushing paper.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that there's guys that do that,
sure.
But it wasn't for me. So that was an unplanned event. So a couple unplanned events with my transitions. Number one is I didn't expect to be alive.
Yeah.
I didn't have a death wish or anything, but it's statistics. It's all my buddies are up on the wall, and it's like, somewhere along the way I'd accepted like, hey, I'm going to die doing this, but I was good with it. I'm good with who I'm working with, the mission that we're doing. Like I'm good. So that was the first thing. It was like, whoa, I didn't even know what a master sergeant made for retirement pay because it was not on my list of.
Do you remember that moment where it clicked in your head? You're like, you know what? I'm good with death at this point.
No, I don't remember the moment. I just, no, I don't. But I know somewhere along the way, just based off of the end, of me not expecting to live, is like, whoa, somewhere along that way, I had accepted that, like, hey, I'm good. I believe in the mission. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the men that I'm with. and if I die doing this, like, man, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, but no, I don't remember. It wasn't a decisive moment of whenever I made the conscious decision that I'm good with it. It just kind of occurred.
Yeah.
But the caliber of guys that I was working with, man, you know what I mean? It was, they do heroic shit on a, you know what I mean, on a daily basis.
Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. That's, yeah, so it was, but no, I don't, to answer your question, no, I don't remember that moment of that.
Yeah, it's, I often think about that, like, I only had one deployment in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
It was a 405, and, but there was that moment in time where, like, I remember where my driver was killed.
Yeah.
And I'm, going through that moment of putting him into the bag and everything. And that was, I can remember it distinctly, like my mind clicking, saying, all right, like fucking it's this is it.
Yep.
Like, like everything up until that point, like, it was like you're running around with the boys, right? And you're doing all the things that
Heck yeah, man.
did, right? And
Yeah,
exactly. And then the moment comes where you lost one of your boys, and you're like, okay, gut check. Am I ready?
Reality.
And it's like, I may not survive this.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember that moment, being at that time, and that was crazy.
Yeah. The big moments that I do remember, like you said, that time frame, '04, like there was like, the transition
Cowboys.
from chasing the deck to foreign fighters and Zarqawi and all of that, man, it was a completely different war than the last rotation. And I remember how terrified I was, man. Like you said, hey, this is real now. People are getting blowed up, maimed. IEDs were in vogue. Then came suicide bomber. You know what I mean? It was a different thing. But I really, man, I struggled with. I thank God my actions weren't that of a coward. I mean, my actions were good, but inside, I had a ton of fear, man. I was like, wow. I even questioned myself, man, me feeling this much fear, should I be in this job description? Because I'm looking around and those guys don't look like how I'm feeling, but I don't know, but eventually processed that and got over it. It's like, yeah, man, it's a normal human fear, but I know by like 2005 that kind of went away. I think because you talk a lot about the physiology, that up until that moment I had a lot of fight or flight responses, a lot of physiological responses, and then post 2005 I guess because I wasn't listening to those responses, just charging on through. I mean, I stopped having them. Like I was no longer that level of fear. I mean, I always had fear, you know what I mean, but not that level of responses. They just kind of stopped, which causes problems post-military. But
it does. Regulation.
Yeah, but that transition piece, man, it was, so in 2010, I had an undiagnosed, because we always talk about veteran suicide, and the three biggies are, chemical dependencies, self-medication, undiagnosed, untreated TBI, and PTS, moral grief and injury, all that stuff. So the only reason why I didn't kill myself in 2010, 11 time frame, because I was in rough shape. Like I said, I had a wonderful family, have a support group, I'm very active in my community. I was totally set up for success, but I had an undiagnosed, untreated TBI, and a tons of unprocessed emotion. That's PTS, whatever you want to call it, but it's unprocessed emotion. And I was in a bad way. And but lucky for me, I had men around, like I said, and I was angry. I was very angry. Yeah. Plus, I didn't want to get out.
Part of that lingering TBI.
Well, I mean, it was like the big mess. And the only reason why I didn't kill myself was because I wasn't struggling with, I didn't have the hat trick going on, the trifecta. I just had two of them, and so I had a solid foundation. I had a power greater than myself. I had a lot of really good stuff and tons of friends, and that guided me in the right direction. And at one time I was going to cognitive therapy, physical therapy, psychological therapy. Had to be on meds for a little while, psychological meds, and because I was unwell. The thing about it is all those therapies, they actually work if you do them. And
absolutely. I mean, it's and it took me a while to understand that, right?
Yeah.
Because I look at some of these things that exist in the veteran space, and I'm sure other people out there listening to this, think the same way.
Yeah.
From perception is like, equine therapy. Like,
Yeah.
that, what the hell is
Lame,
that?
is
Dude?
it?
Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yoga.
Petting a goat, or
Yeah.
riding a horse. But it's that connection with the animal.
Yeah.
Right. If you ever, and it took me to the point of like having to, I've been around horses, a long period of time in my life, right? But have I really ever connected with a horse through a process I went through with Illuminating Hearts? No.
Yeah. No.
I got to sit there. I've got to groom that horse. Really connect with that thing, and I was like, wow. Well, this is a much different experience, and this horse actually enjoys my presence.
Yeah.
Right, and I connected with that animal on a very small scale, but it was a much different experience than I had previously had because I was looking at it through a different perception at that time.
Yeah, and for so long I couldn't even connect with myself.
Right.
So if I can't connect with myself, I'm definitely don't even have the capacity of
That's it.
even approaching that way. The horse is going to run off and start biting me, and
Right.
you know what I mean? Because
Right.
I'm vibrating and like pretending.
And that was all my experiences prior to riding a horse,
Right.
Or, with this experience, right? Is those horses, can sense that, right?
Yeah.
The vibrations, the energy, right? All that
Yeah.
stuff that's coming out of your body. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, man, and I believe there shouldn't be, but just in talking with it, like there should be an award given for all of that, like post-traumatic stress, not being able to connect, hypervigilance, like all those indicators. Hey, it means you actually did something.
Yeah.
You know
right.
what I'm saying? It's like
right. You experienced.
Yeah, man. It's like, hey, there's this like the stigma, the shame, the guilt, all that kind of crap, man. It's like, hey, the narrative should be is like, hey, yeah, that's normal, man. You experience combat, you experience surreal events that way that aren't common in life. It's like, hey, you voluntarily, because we didn't get drafted, we voluntarily joined during a time of war, put ourselves in a position to attempt to do good for the country, for ourselves, for whoever was around. And then through that experience, experienced a lot of things that jack up any human being, unless you're a sociopath or psychopath. They don't really have a problem with it. And so it's almost like should be celebrated. It's like, man, I'm hypervigilant. Like, fucking good job, man. You did something. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
now we need to work on that.
Right. Let's control it.
Yeah, let's get that whole piece. And
right. It's like I'd much rather be referred to nowadays as the warrior in the garden. Right?
Yeah.
It's like I have the capacity for violence.
Absolutely.
I choose to use it when I want to.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that saying of, obviously, because we relate to it, but it's that if people like choose peace, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, if you choose peace, that means you have the ability to invoke war.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you're just peaceful, you're not peaceful, like you're harmless. Right. You know what I mean? So, but in order to choose peace, which we do now, doesn't mean that, we're still on the warrior path. You know what I mean? That's the ace in my back pocket, man. I can pull out anytime I want. That's what I always talk about is I didn't get sober and become a hippie, man.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, I got sober to be David Banner.
Yeah.
Smarter and more attuned to my life. Right?
Exactly.
I'm done with the Hulk.
Exactly.
Or Bruce Banner, right?
Yeah.
Is the name. But yeah, it's and I find these conversations fascinating, right? To find how people are discovering their own paths in this mental healing of our community, right? Because listen, the facts are the facts, right? There are over 3.5 million people that served in the 20-year war.
Yeah.
We have a lot of individuals that are still struggling today.
Yeah.
Years after their deployments, right? From undiagnosed PTSD, undiagnosed TBI, mostly TBI, right? Because of the enigmas of IEDs.
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything like that. Vietnam was, some guerrilla MVA style things were happening then, but not to the level of what we saw Iraq, Afghanistan, and the use of munitions that way. And they had some resounding effects on this community, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The suicide factor that is happening here, right? So I talk about this a lot. Brown University came out with their study last year saying 30,177 veterans had taken their lives in the 20-year war.
Yeah.
Right? or over the course of the 20-year war. And that's in comparison to the 7,057 combat deaths.
Right.
So, the veteran community is killing themselves at a rate of 4.5 times that of combat injury or combat death. But through the research that we've done, and we've through the Grunstyle Foundation, we see that number to be astronomically higher, almost
Absolutely.
5 times higher, to the sense of somewhere around 150,000 people have killed themselves, or veterans have killed themselves in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So, what is driving that, right? Is it addiction? Well, these are all some of the byproducts of the root problem.
Absolutely.
Right? And, that's where Warrior Heart really steps in is, yes, we are here to treat the addiction, but that is the symptom of the problem. Let's get to the problem.
Absolutely,
right?
man.
And that's why that's the stuff I enjoy, is these types of conversations, the work that's being done here to identify ways of unwrapping the physiological aspects of how your chemicals or the chemicals in the biology of your body's working.
Yeah.
And applying it into things that demand focus.
Yeah.
Where you are like, okay, let's put everything to the side and let's focus on this one thing.
Yep.
And that one thing will quiet your mind, will quiet all of the stress, and and put you in a state of harmony. And now we can start moving forward. Right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear, what is the Warrior's Heart in the broader aspects?
Yeah, man. So and one thing that you mentioned is, and it'll tie into Warrior's Heart is that, because when I first got out, I was heavily involved in veteran suicide, right? Still working with, a 12-step program and doing my deal, but it was real focused because all my buddies that had killed, friends that I'd had that had killed myself, my own experience, and I got it, you know what I mean? I understood. And but what I understand about our population, the suicide is when we want to kill ourselves, we just do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a cry for help. It's not like, hey, we're done.
Yeah.
And we do it. So you can't stop. I can't stop that, right? So, but what I have discovered is the majority of those, probably not all of them, but the majority of when that final act was done under the influence of something.
Yeah.
So it was like, so in theory, if we got in front of it, so if we can't stop them from doing it whenever they're going to do it, because they're going to do it just like I would, you would, and it's like, hey, if we can hit it at this chemical dependency, this self-medication, which is a symptom, exactly what you said, because that's just a symptom of what's wrong. What's wrong is everything inside. So that was where, number one, I have all my experience, which is I only stay in my own experience. Like, you can argue with my opinion, you can't argue with my experience, right? So whenever that was my passion. I was involved with it. In 2013, I met Josh Lannon. I was putting together a fun and gun. I was just trying to pay the bills, man.
Yeah.
A 3-day event. Short version is I met Josh. Him and his wife had professionally run successfully drug and alcohol rehabs, and he approached me as like, hey, we want to do it for veterans and first responders. Like, absolutely, Short version, 2016, we opened up. So the big thing is that we do at Warrior's Heart, like you've experienced out there, is what I do out there predominantly is provide warrior oversight. Because the clinicians want to do more clinical things because they're pros. I mean, the medical wants to do more medical things, but because I am the population, like, I know what we can handle and not. Like, no, we can't do 3 days straight of clinical therapy talking about our feelings. That's not going to work.
Right.
So we have that. So there's a lot of things we do different. We're still the only one, the only rehab in the nation that serves just this population.
Yeah.
And that population is active duty veterans, law enforcement, and first responders. So those that face life and death as a profession on a daily basis. So number one, the thing that we do out there, you have an instant peer network. Because even though everybody in recovery and healing needs to do the same things, me sitting next to a lawyer, we're not going to, we got to do the same things, but we don't have a common thread. And we have some familial stuff, but, or like a law enforcement guy and a drug dealer, like, that's not going to work so well. You know what I mean? And
very true. The Secretary McDonough of the VA, right? Mm-hmm. I think probably one of the better secretaries we've had in the last 20, 30 years.
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Shulkin was really good. McDonough, worked with him a lot, and he does he's an advocate, right? He's doing what he can within the bureaucracy of it all. But there's a thing that he had mentioned and said one time that really stuck with me, and that's veterans heal better with veterans.
Yes.
Right. And then, I heard that, and I think back to some of the early days of Grunt Style, and, working, as the operations manager at the time. And, a lot of people on the floor were, combat veterans. But, they were all in their own little worlds at that time, struggling with the things that they had, and it was really having an effect on production, their ability to be efficient at work, even to work a full 8 hours. Right, there are individuals that come into my office almost every day and saying, "Hey Tim, I am struggling today, and the only person I could talk to about this is you, because you get it." I'm like, oh man, okay, well, let's take a seat and let's unload that burden and see what we got, and let's unpack it, right? Yeah. And we go through that, and then we implemented, like, well, this is a thing within our organization, right? So let's implement some process and some policy, and you don't need to go very far to really understand what works and what doesn't work. Right?
Absolutely.
And we went back to the basics, and we implemented a buddy system inside of our program, inside of our business. And, on the floor, that immediately hit, right? We were pairing veterans with other veterans that, might have served in the same area. Yeah. And they're able to meet and talk about similar things and instances and circumstances and experiences. And what we started to see was communication was starting to become way better. Right. We started to see that the attitude and happiness of the employees were starting to improve. Yeah. And the production was improving, and the output and the quality was improving. Everything was changing because we had changed the simple idea of, hey, we can be an employer that just expects results and be data driven, or we can be an ethical employer and say, hey, we have a responsibility to you as our employees to provide an opportunity of safe work environment, and let's also take it a step further and be a part of the healing. Exactly. Right? And wow, I mean, that took off. So I think there's a lot of power in that, getting a bunch of veterans together, and not just do what the VA does, where we sit in a circle and we talk talk therapy. Like,
that's part of it, maybe, but not the full picture.
Right. There has to be other things layered in. You just not be able to get through 6 sessions of talk therapy, like, I'm cured, I'm good. No. Let's go back out and attack the world. I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying, and I'm certainly not saying it doesn't have its value.
Absolutely,
right. But it's not what the veteran is looking for when they're trying to understand what's happening with them.
Yeah, it's definitely not the silver bullet. You know what I mean? Like, I do this. None of it is, right? It's always.
But you're creating environments where these individuals are not only going through these, modules together, right? But you're creating places for them to really unwind together and create together, right? And I think that's truly unique.
Yeah. So our mission statement at Warriors Heart is Warriors Healing Warriors. Right, it's not a slogan. You just described it. Yeah, you know what I mean. That's the magic. So the big thing that we do is we create that environment. We know environment matters, right? And so it's a 543-acre ranch, an hour from San Antonio. It was an old Conoco oil executive retreat. I mean, it's a resort, because environment matters. And when it comes to rehab and like, a lot of people have an expectation of it should be punitive, like, you alcoholic addict, horrible person, you need to suffer, which is is the
sounds
opposite.
Like something my Catholic dad would say.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But it exists, and so number one, the environment, number two, the population, and we had mentioned it before, like all the different modalities, and we also had mentioned, like, hey, is it the trauma that's causing me to self-medicate, or is it the self-medicate that's bringing up the trauma? Like, who gives a shit? Like, treat both of them. Yeah. And most places don't. It's one or the other. It's very siloed off. But out there, we do a trauma counseling with a licensed therapist, and we do chemical dependency counseling with a licensed chemical dependency counselor. So we're doing the hard emotional work that has to occur. And again, us knowing us, we can only do that for so long. Like, man, you're only going to get me to talk about what I'm feeling and thinking for a little bit, and then I need to go pound on something, So we have a wood shop, we have a metal shop, we have jujitsu, we have gyms, again, back to we know what our population needs, and it's for 42 days, I get them, and seems like a long time, but it's not. Not when you're trying to rewire your whole existence, repair all the damage done, and but you've been out there, man. It's amazing.
Special.
It's
it
amazing,
really is.
man.
You know, I've been out there a couple times now.
Yeah.
You know, the first time was getting a grand tour from your wonderful staff,
Yeah.
and really seeing it all in motion, right?
Yeah.
You know, to the and you know when you talk about so modestly about these workshops, right?
Yeah.
That wood shop is fantastic. That metal shop, my goodness, I would spend spend days in there just crafting and doing all sorts of different things. It's quite a magnificent, so you really are creating these beautiful places where people are they're doing that hard work.
Yep.
Right. And they're going through and they're meeting that dragon on the battlefield. Yep. Right. And they're being forced to get engaged in some sort of, let's call it mortal combat with it.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Because it is.
Yeah. And then, they get that relief by, decompressing with their group and actually, getting the use of those motor skills to focus on something. So now we're processing all the things you just talked about and you just faced. Now you're processing it while you're crafting something and you're creating, right? Not destroying. And that's the beauty, I think, of what Warrior Hearts is, right? Is you're meeting all that destruction, you're facing it, and you're like, like and now you're in that create mode.
And that changes physiology.
Mm-hmm. Rewires the brain.
You know what I'm saying? So it's all those different things. There's nothing that we do at Warrior's Heart that is in test phase. Like, oh, geez, let's try this out. Nah, man. Like, we know the basics. We know that all you need is back to war, right? Yeah. If you execute the fundamentals expertly, like, you got a good chance of making it, So that's what we focus on is those fundamentals. And like you were saying, and everything that we do, because guys will be like 1-2 days a week in the morning is yoga, because we want to get them moving in the morning times, because a lot of guys haven't, especially they've been, they just haven't. And they'll be like, oh, this is stupid, whatever. But yoga is, attacks emotional healing through the body versus the talk therapy through the brain, top down or bottom up, So we kind of trick them whenever we're doing stuff, you know what I mean? And it's not like, it's all mandatory out there, you know what I mean? So but it's, it's the magic occurs though. Still, we need our licensed professionals, whether it's in the medical field or in the clinical field. But the real magic, man, happens around the fire pit, happens in the wood shop, the metal, those conversations, because with our population, man, we don't have to talk about mentorship or leadership. Like we do that. We see someone struggling. I'm doing better than he is, man. I go over to him and like, hey, bro, like, what day are you on? Like, I'm on day 2. I'm on day 40. Like, he's trying to figure out a way to leave. You know what I mean? And I'm like, hey, bro, that's the magic, man. It can only occur with one another, like you experienced, like you said, with Ground Style and just what y'all implemented, man. Yeah. And the cool thing is that it's not new age fangled stuff. Right. It's like, and there's no silver bullet. Like, there's all kinds of healing modalities that are out there. The big thing, and one of the biggest things that we do out there, man, is reminding our population of who they are. Yeah. Not who they're not, because no one comes to rehab on an upswing, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, my life is great. Let me just, I want to check this place out. I want to work on my character. Like, who said that? No one. And so they come to us at the lowest parts of their life. They destroyed families. They destroyed money, jobs, all of it, man. Some of them, everything from a homeless vet to an active duty spec ops guy, that just hadn't gotten in trouble yet and needs to do it. But they know. So we got to meet them where they're at. But fundamentally, it's like, hey, man, most of the folks that come out there at one point in their life was probably top 25% of whatever profession they were in. Yeah. Because it goes hand in hand with super talented people, alcohol, drugs, and self-medication. So everything that we do is just about getting rid of the things that they no longer need. No longer serve them, old core beliefs, old experiences, processing trauma, and getting them back to that person. Because we talk about recovery. It's like, well, recovery, what are we trying to recover? Like, recover what? Right. What does that even mean? Well, what it means is I'm trying to recover me. You know what I mean? Like the real me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The part that's covered up by trauma, whether it's from before when I came into the military, which there's a shit ton of that.
Yeah.
And then all the things that happened on the job, so it's, again, it's just processing that stuff and then getting those good habits built in. I mean, it's hard work, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you've experienced him. I've experienced it. Like I had to have the same amount of willingness that I demonstrated in the military in staying sober and becoming a good dad and becoming a good husband, a good brother. Like that doesn't come easy to me. I'm good at war.
Yeah. I'll tell you, we're, September it will be my 20th anniversary that I deployed.
Wow.
And I have no problem saying it. The last 20 years of my life has been extraordinarily difficult. Right?
Absolutely.
I have never had, I never thought I would be an individual that would, be wrapping so much of my personal attention around mental health, around my own personal mental health, right? And that's been my biggest struggle over the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
Right? And, making sure that I'm putting myself in the right place with the right people, the right network, right? And that's people network are pretty much the same. And really just being extraordinarily mindful of where I am at any given time with my headspace, right?
Absolutely.
And I never and that's a challenge for me. Right?
It doesn't come natural,
right? It was a few years ago, that I had to sit down with my oldest son and really apologize to him for not being around. I was here,
but you weren't here.
I wasn't present.
No.
Right. And I feel terrible that my two oldest children had to really experiencing that side of me.
Yeah.
So the last 4 years of my life, I've been really dumping into them to being a better father, a better person, more present with my family, right? Because all of this doesn't matter.
Yeah, man.
What matters is how do you show up for the people that you love?
Exactly, man.
Right?
Yeah, and that's a tough talk about transition to go from the guy that you weren't to the guy that you now. You know what I mean? That's the level of commitment. But that's where what I've seen is a lot of veterans, myself included, there's that transition piece where you kind of have one foot in the past and one foot in the present, but I'm not present when I'm doing that, like we said. And that is over. It's over. You know what I mean? Unless a war breaks out here in the United States, like I'm not going to be in it again.
Yeah.
Like I had to embrace that, which was very, very difficult for me personally, because that's all I'd ever done, And then I'd be lying, just like you said, if some days still are a struggle, but I have tools and I have a network and I have purpose. Like when I get up and my feet hit the floor, no matter how I'm feeling, how big my headache is, what's creaking, aching, whatever mistakes I've made, like, hey, the war starts now. You know what I mean? And I have purpose. I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. I got to be a dad. I got to be a husband. Not just your average one. Like, I would not be the man that I am without the people in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not that great of a guy, man. Me left with me. I mean, I'll be okay.
I hear you.
I'm decent, but
I got good morals.
But the people that I have in my life, without saying it, demand that me be my full potential because they see my full potential. So, I mean, that is my purpose now. Where the military was my number one, now my loyalty chain appropriately is my family. Because, when I was in the military, family always came second. That's just the truth, and but now I actually have my team is my family, number one on the loyalty chain. Nothing else comes, if something tries to come in between that, they're going to be disappointed because I know who I am, what I stand for, and what my purpose is, man. And guys without purpose, it doesn't. We're wired for purpose and service.
Yeah. It's the saying, the idle hands are the devil's playground, right? And, that's you got to find purpose. You have to find purpose, right? And that some people will take a long time to find it.
Yeah,
right.
And one of the biggest things, man, like for this show, us talking like we do, is like I remember being in that spot where like I felt completely alone. I had tons of people that loved me all around me, all kinds of everything around me. And that loneliness, man, that bone aching loneliness, and that thought that no one else feels like me, no one else, like I'm too damaged, man. I've made too many bad decisions. Like I'm not, I'm not coming out of this, and just for guys to know, like, no, you can.
Yeah.
Not on your own.
Yeah.
Because if you could do it on your own, you'd already done it.
That's right. I mean, that was the exact feelings that I was experiencing when I came home from Iraq and left the battalion.
Yeah.
My son was a year old.
Yeah.
Like my wife and him were, had created their whole life routine.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been doing that for a year without me. I come home and I've been involved in destroying life for the last period of 12 months.
Yeah.
And now I'm responsible for nurturing this like this baby.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God! Like the last time I held a baby, we were like running for cover.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and trying to get some civilians out of the way.
Right.
And like that was such a mind fuck for me. It was terrible.
Absolutely.
I mean, that spun me down such a horrible path, and I masked it for a long time.
Yep,
right?
you can get away with it for a while.
Yes, right. I'm like, like nobody will know. Like, I'm okay. I could present myself.
Yeah.
Like, and then it just started. Everything started creeping in. The alcohol, the drugs, right? The poor decisions, right? Losing, cognitive, understanding of my reality,
right?
And not really having, the understanding of what I was doing was how it was impacting other people.
Yeah.
Like that was. I look back on that time period of my life, and brother, I am like it. I am ashamed.
Absolutely.
Right. And the best, but it doesn't serve me any longer.
No, it does not.
The best thing I can do now is be present for my family because I wasn't there before.
Yep.
Right.
Can't change it.
And I just got to embrace it. And to tell you the truth, I have the best relationship with my children.
Isn't it awesome?
It is. It's amazing to me, right?
Yeah.
My oldest son is in the military now, and there was some. Heartache when he left.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
I did not think I was going to experience that. I'm like, oh, damn. Like not me.
Yeah.
No, I was a little bitch.
Oh, absolutely, man. Anxiety filled. Oh my God, what are they doing? Like,
right. And, then I think to myself, I'm like, what were you doing when you were 18, 19, Tim? Like, come on, get a break.
Yeah.
So that that's been challenging, but but I also now think that he sees some of the things that I was experiencing.
Absolutely.
Right. So, there's a learning that's happening on his end. That's, I'm grateful for. I never asked for that. And I never expected that from any of my children to understand where I was at.
Right.
Right. But it's nice to know that, like, he has conversations now like, oh man, I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's an incredible thing, and getting back to some of the activities that you're doing. Right, I was there last Friday.
Yeah.
Right. Today's May 16th.
Yeah.
I was there a week ago, and I got to spend time with the staff again. But more importantly, I spent time with the clients.
Right.
Right. And I'd love to hear why you call them clients versus patients. But and we'll get to that. But getting the time to spending time with the clients. Was really great. Like, we did an art activity together, and I was, I was lending some of my experiences and helping these guys, understand, how to, lake tone and color and all these different things. And, it was just such a fun experience, right? And, to see a guy, going through the frustrations of looking to his, left and his right, because he doesn't have the skill set of what his peers do to make a good painting.
Right.
But then you just make a little correction for the guy. I'm like, hey, try it this way.
Yeah.
And then
Boom.
Everything changes for them.
Yeah.
And you see this blink or this brightness like flicker in their eye. And like, oh man, that's why I love art. Right?
Exactly.
Just seeing how people respond to it.
Yeah.
And that was such a great experience. I was there for 6 hours, and and I intend to do more and be out there, and because it's those are the environments I like because that's our people.
Yeah.
Right. And
completely.
veterans help veterans heal. Right.
Yeah.
I'm further down the path than a lot of those guys. And
Yes.
it's a responsibility for me, I believe, to make sure that I'm paying it forward and being there for others that are trying to do the same thing for themselves.
100%. That one word, man, responsibility. I believe the same way. You know, I've made it. I came through that dark stuff. I'll have more dark stuff coming up, but I'm in a position to have tools and the abilities to assist others, you know, and it's my responsibility to do that. Just my own charter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not anyone else telling me to do that, but it's like, man, I got, to me, I have the keys to the kingdom, you know, and I made it through that stuff, man. I mean, I have tools that I could give to others, you know what I mean, and just help along the way and just provide a healthy presence at best, you know, and that's worth living, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the juice for me. I mean, that's like to help others and to watch the light bulbs come on and then to see them go on. It's like, oh, you saved my life. I'm like, no, I didn't, bro. Like, you know, no, I provide the space. I helped along the way, you know what I mean? I acknowledge that, you know, that I matter in their journey, you know, and that's what I get from it. It's like, wow, man, you see some guys come from the bottom of the barrel, you know, all the way to being successful and smiling with their kids, you know what I mean, or doing adventures or whatever, you know, and it's like, I was part of that. Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's important for me, you know what I mean, to know that, like, yeah, man, because I wake up not feeling good some mornings, you know what I mean? Self-pity creeps in and feel sorry for myself. And, you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, man, ruck up, you know what I mean? It's like,
quit tomorrow.
Get to work, man. There's a lot to do, you know. And but you mentioned we call them clients because, again, back to this population, man, even the word patient, that's a powerful word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It means I am. My shoulders instantly drop. My shoulders sag. Like, fuck, I'm a patient. Have
sorrow.
Man.
Have pity on
like
me.
I'm a patient. It's like, so we say clients because it's a volunteer unit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a lockdown unit.
Yeah, they can leave at any time they like.
Anytime, man. So it's so we're providing a service for them. You know, I mean, it's a client. You know, it's that is just the more appropriate word for how we treat. You know, yeah.
It's and it shows. You know, I think every person I've talked to, every client that I've talked to within the program has nothing but raving responses or opinions on the staff, right, and all the work that is being done. It's fascinating. You know, I was there. One of my friends, dear friends, was in the program. You know, and I went to visit. You guys were gracious enough to allow me to see that. That's not normally allowed.
Right.
And you know, I got to see my buddy go through that program, and he was in a really bad place.
Yeah.
Right. You know, but to see him there, right, and have a conversation with my friend that I didn't know I'd see again. Right. In terms of, you know, the cult of not the cult of personality, but just the, you know, who you know as the person, and then how the mental aspects take that person over, and that person's gone.
Hijacks them.
Right. Hijacks them. Right. I didn't think I was going to see my friend again. Right. And to see that light in his eye, and to see him smiling, and to see him like light on his feet and not dragging his ass all over the place. Like, my goodness. Like, and that was, you know, it was 36 days into the program. Today, you know, man is living his best life. And like the power of just reformatting the way that we perceive the world around us. That's the gift that was given to him.
And he put in the work. You know, and that's what I always go back to is initiative-based training. Because it's training, man. I don't know how to live life without self-medicating, and I don't know how to change my behavior, because if I could have, I would have. So obviously I can't do that. You know what I mean? So being in that space and putting in that work, you get the results tenfold. It's just like going to the gym. Like, we can watch all kinds of videos, we can talk about it, we can make plans and designs, but until I walk in there and start picking up heavy things and moving them around, I'm not going to get any results, you know? And it's just like everything else. Whatever the amount of effort you put into it is what you're going to get back. Putting in minimal effort, you're going to get minimal results. Putting in maximum effort, you're going to get maximum results. But I can understand that kind of healing. You know, that because that's mindset, training. Am I to standard or not to standard?
Right.
Below the standard, above it? Like,
It's very binary.
yeah, exactly, man. Zeros and ones.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do this. Hey, it's no mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't know why I'm struggling so bad. It's like, what do you mean you don't know why, man?
Right.
Like, you sit on the couch all day long. You like all you do is pissed off. You know what I mean? You yell at people. You watch the news. You're not helping anybody. You're a servant. And you're not serving. Yeah. So therefore, you're struggling.
Yeah. There's something there that just clicked on me and it immediately evoked an internal response, right? I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Watching politics on TV,
right? For
our community, what is your opinion on that?
I am not built to handle it. I would just speak for myself. I have this. I'm going to make a T-shirt of this. It's like not really, but probably it's like a. Just because I'm well trained doesn't mean I'm well. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because I know how to act, right? Yeah. But like what you said is like for the news, like for me, like I skim the headlines because I need to be informed. Yeah. I need to know what's going on. But I skim the headlines. I dive in a little bit, and as soon as my blood pressure starts going up, I remove myself from that and get back into something because I literally cannot I can't handle it. Yeah. I get furious. I go from 0 to 120 in like 0.5 seconds and straight into fury. I am super grateful that there's a member. I mean, you do a lot of it. You have a capability even greater than I do of addressing DC, you know what I mean, in politics. I'm super grateful that you have the ability to do that because I don't. But to address it, man, it's like it just... and that captures guys, and it keeps them in that in-between world because none of that is in the present, what I mean? Or if you do feel strongly about that in politics, get involved.
Get involved, right.
Get involved in that space. I mean, we see many veterans that are congressmen now, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, hey, if you feel that strongly or that upset about something, do something about it instead of just whining and complaining and yelling and screaming. But I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm not... And I'm still growing in that.
I think it does. In this, getting involvement, right? To your point, the 118th Congress has the largest representation of veterans since World War II.
Wow!
Right? So that's great, right? That more veterans are getting involved, and we need more veterans getting involved because, as we look around, and it's no surprise to anybody, is the facade is starting to peel off the walls. Right, and I think we need good, solid individuals that understand leadership and understand what good or great looks like.
Yeah.
Standing up there, representing the people and leading us through the darkness right now. Because I feel like we're kind of like, not to spin off into another conversation, but it seems like in the last maybe 10 years of America, it's like the lights are out and we're feeling our way through the darkness.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah,
it's way less than great.
And that has a certain impact on the mental health of this country, right? I think COVID was the moment in time. If we were to go back and put our finger on a point in time, saying when was the moment in American history that the population understood that there's a mental health problem in America?
Yeah,
I think it was COVID.
Absolutely, it was. It exposed all that.
It exposed it, right? The masks were off, and you still see it today. Maybe like the year post COVID, you'd see people like crying in their car, right?
Yeah.
See people crying on their way to work all the time. I'm like, man, what is going? People are just breaking.
Yeah.
Right. It's not so much that anymore,
right?
But that mental health didn't recede.
Yeah,
right? I think it's getting even more compounding on the average American because of inflation and all the things that are affecting the home, right?
Yeah.
Now it's putting greater pressure on the Americans.
Yeah.
And so like our mental health is the most important thing. Yeah. I think it's national security at this point. Like we're not hitting recruitment numbers. We got a fat-bodied population.
Yep.
We've got a mentally unwell population.
Yep.
We've got, you can go down the list
right.
of what those situations are.
Yeah.
But, until we start addressing these things, like what, are we just going to sit here and just be that guy or girl sitting on the couch just bitching and yelling at the TV? Or are we going to get up and we're going to fucking do something?
Do something,
right?
Man. Yeah, because I have a wonderful point of reference for that whole piece, the mental health, because I was forced to do my own mental health work and, and be involved and have purpose and all that. When COVID hit, man, it was the best time in the world for me and my family. Not my sons, they were teenagers and, would rather be do other things. It's like, wow, this is a portion of my life that I wouldn't have had. He'd have been still in college. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have had, now we're just jammed in there together. I'm like living the dream, man. I'm like, yeah. So that was the good point of reference. But you mentioned and they don't talk about it, but all the problems, right? Whether it's gun violence, whether it's all this, we talked about it with alcohol and drugs, man. That's the symptoms. That's not. If you address that, it's just like I'm dying of pneumonia. One of those symptoms is I have a cough. Yeah. Like you treat my cough, and yay, I'm not coughing anymore, but I'm still dying of pneumonia. So treating symptoms don't work in any category. And the root cause analysis is the mental health. Like, hey, what are we doing? Yeah. What is being provided? Like. Which all comes down to leadership at the basic level, which is in the home. And we have those, I'm not judging, right? Yeah. You mentioned it, I mentioned it. I was not the best, at one point in time in my home, but I am now, and so it starts there. And then in my community, what am I doing for my community? And then for the nation, and just expanding outward, and because it's not that, it's very simple, not easy for sure, but it is that simple. Like we don't do anything to address that that I've seen other than what we're doing ourselves. Right. But maybe that's the answer. Maybe we get enough of us, but enough folks that have come from the darkness, have repaired damage, have, gotten better. By no means are we saints. Or am I a saint? I won't speak for you, but it's but man, I do more good than I do bad. You know what I mean? My family likes me to be around.
Exactly. Like I'll be judged. I know that. But nobody on this planet will do that because I plan to keep myself out of jail.
Exactly.
It's. The mental health, is our biggest thing, right? I think of stories that I've heard over the years, like of warrior cultures and past civilizations, right? One I like to use a lot was from a Green Beret, a friend of mine in the city of Chicago, does mental health at the Illinois medical system, right up there in Rush. But he laments the story of the Scots back in the medieval periods when they would go out and fight with the Romans, right? They would come back to their camp, and the druid or the priest of the community would not allow the war fighters back into the community until they went through a cleansing process. Right, that cleansing process happened to be psychedelics and medicines of those times, right. To allow those individuals to address their problems, purify themselves of the sins they may have committed, and then enter society healed, and that had a huge impact on the society in general, right? There was a great balance that was being brought to that warfighter. We don't do that in America, right? Our culture, we are a warrior culture. I don't care what they can debate me all they fucking want. The data suggests otherwise. More than 2/3 of our livelihood as a nation, we've been embroiled in defending freedom. Right. We are a warrior nation. Yeah. And we treat our warriors like shit when we're done with them, right? And now we have a bunch of broken toys running around the country. And again, I don't think that they're broken because of their military service, right? I think they're broken from the stress that has been impounded on them, and then all the other things that happened in their life is being exposed, and now you have a bomb,
a mess,
right? And that leaves us to wonder what happens next, right? Because the military doesn't do much about it. The VA will just be like, oh, you're a great candidate for an SSRI. Let me just put you on a bunch of poison.
Yeah.
And, maybe this will solve itself by you putting a gun in your mouth.
Right.
We've seen that time and time and time again. But it's organizations like yours that are going out there and doing the hard work of saying, hey, let's think about all these substances. Let's think about all these medications. Let's think about these things, right, and how they're affecting your life.
Yeah.
And let's try to find some programming or some things that we can change, some of the behaviors here, right? Maybe it's eliminating all of these things and finding, something to fill that bucket with something far more productive. That's what I think the future is.
Yeah, and it's us back to when we were talking about responsibility. It should be fill in the blank, right? Whatever. But there's the way it should be, and then there's the way it is. And the way it is currently is it's up to us.
Yeah. There's nobody coming.
Nobody's coming, man. Like, we are it. Sorry we couldn't be better, but we're it. Like, I always talk about guys that make it through, like where you're at, where we're at, and still working on it. Like, we're the default warrior elders because we're still alive. Yeah. You know what I mean? We did.
Yeah, we made it.
Yeah. So it's our back to the warrior. That's the thing about, it's very important for me to know that I'm still on the warrior path. As a warrior, at one time I didn't know. I thought it was just, hey, what made me a warrior was my prowessness on the battlefield. And at that time, like, I'm not a coward. I did what I was supposed to do, and like, hey, good job. But now I'm not on the battlefield. Does that mean I'm not a warrior? And it's like, well, just again, back, you talk a lot about history. Like, what did old broken warriors do when they couldn't fight anymore? They taught. They transferred all of that learning, all of those experience-based information, which is called wisdom, down to the next generation that were going to be knuckleheads just like we were. But at least they would be like, damn, I remember when this guy was talking about this 5 years ago, but at least that's in there. But our would-be elders now are the most screwed up in a lot of cases.
Well, and we are that generation, right? The Vietnam guy is almost gone.
They are, man.
Right?
Yeah.
We are that next generation that those young bucks are looking up to. Like, what are these old heads doing? Yeah. Right?
And that's where I personally get fired up, man, whenever it comes to veterans just whining and yelling and being pissed off. It's like, I get it, man. Like, I feel that same way, but what are you doing about it? Yeah. What am I doing about it? Well, I mean, I put my head on the pillow at night and sleep well for what I'm doing for my population. Again, fail horribly on days, but some days not so much. I mean, kind of nail it. I mean, that's cool. Yeah. And but it's like, it's our responsibility, because especially now you introduce the civilian aspects, like fucking civilians, right? I get it. I get that too, right? But whose responsibility is it? Well, they don't understand. Why don't they understand?
Yeah. Is it because you're grumpy and you don't want to tell them?
They don't understand because you're not telling them. You're not having a conversation with them. And I'm not talking about the weirdos that are yelling and all that stuff, but it's like, hey, man, it's my job to close the distance between the community. Because here's the deal. We mentioned it in my personal experiences. Veteran, we get relief. Yeah. But healing only occurs from the population in which the veteran fought for. Yeah. True, because me and you helping each other out, we're like shifting our shit back and forth. You know what I mean? So there's relief, no doubt, and we need it. But that true healing is whenever a community member sits down and we talk with them. Yeah. And we try to understand them, and they try to understand us, just to a degree. You know what I mean? Like
largely, the Vietnam veteran never got that.
No.
Right? They got quite the opposite for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right? And all those souls, man. Yeah. Just breaks my heart.
It does. That was some of the things. We've had several Vietnam veterans come through Warrior's Heart, man, and talk about. I mean, I love every veteran and first responder that comes through, but I mean, those were my heroes. My guys, my heroes. Yeah. I read all about them, man. So then now I'm privileged to be in a position to like, so everybody that comes into Warrior's Heart, like the one thing that all the staff says that they're going to hear for a few days is welcome home. Yeah. Because you said it, you were home, but you weren't home. Yeah. Like, you understand what that means. It's not a cliche. It's like, It's like, no, man, welcome home for real. Like, I don't care if you've been in the States for 30 years, like, you're not present, right? That meaning that piece. So it's a big deal. It's not a cliche. It's not a little cool saying. It's like, no, man, it's time to come home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Shit
like,
at the door.
That's it, man. Let's clean up, get cleaned up, get trained up, get back in the fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we have things to do. We have lives to live. We're not done. You know what I mean? It's not over, even though it feels that way for guys, and it thinks that way, and it's like hey, we've made it out.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it on our own.
Yeah.
We've had buddies. We all have the stories, man. So, yeah, man, it's a good way to live, man. I'm very grateful. I'm full of the gratitude of men in my life and women in my life and my family. Like I said, I would not be here without purpose and commitments.
Yeah.
And
I think that, if I think about that responsibility, a lot, right? And sure, it's a responsibility I place on myself. Nobody's asking me. But, we are those old heads, right?
Yeah.
We are that next generation. I believe that we have a responsibility to show that new Marine, that new soldier, that new airman, that new sailor, and maybe even the Space Force.
Yeah.
That, this is what right looks like. This is what the veteran of today is doing, right?
Yes.
The veteran of today is engaged in their community. The veteran of today is not going to let what happened to the Vietnam veterans happen to us.
Right.
And we're going to make a better place and a better world and a better country for ourselves. And we're going to take a personal responsibility in doing that. And, I think that, we have to do that.
We have to.
Right. And if we don't, then we're...
Shame on us.
Shame on us, right?
Yeah.
We are weakening our country.
Yeah.
Right? Because, we wore that uniform. We raised our hand. Just because we took the uniform off doesn't mean that oath goes away.
Absolutely,
right?
man.
And for all of us, that's personal.
Yeah. And the war aspects of it, protect and defend, man, that part is easy for us. Living, though. You know what I mean? Like, how do I, like all of us that struggle, it's like, hey, we don't want to hurt people. You know what I mean? We don't want to hurt ourselves. But I don't know how to live here. I know how to live in a combat environment.
Yeah.
That's the best living there is, man. It's easy.
Right.
I'm killing you, you're killing me. Like, it's crystal clear. No politics, no nothing. But now in this environment, like, how to become a better father, I wasn't trained for that. You know what I mean? So therefore I need training.
What school? What excellent school do I need to go to?
But that brings up a point. So one of the reasons that assisted me in being effective in my own healing was I looked at my civilian life as the same way that I did my military life. Hey, what schools can I go to? What can I do? I was like a go-getter, man. Like I was like, how can I improve? What can I get better at? Faster run times, whatever it is. It's like, so that same template I just imposed on this life with healing modalities, Some of them I tried and it's like, didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
And but then other ones is like, but just that mindset, that opportunity, because a lot of guys hide, myself included, at certain times, hide in helping others.
Yeah.
Parts of organizations for years, and they're like really helping other people, and it's great. And there's this thing that occurs in one's mind, in my mind, I'll just say, of like, well, if I'm helping others, that's good, man. Therefore, I'm good. And I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Not kind of. I was being a hypocrite. It's like, wow. Like I have to, in order for me to have sustained combat operations, right? Because that's what anybody can go into a fight or two, but hey, can you go to war for the rest of your life? How do you create that sustainment? And the only way that I can sustain assisting other warriors, to get better is number one, by me getting better.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah.
But
you hear it every time you get on a plane, right?
Yeah, put your own.
You put your oxygen on before you help your child,
right?
Because you can't help anybody else until you help yourself,
right? And that is a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of wisdom, sage advice, Tom, in those words, And I greatly appreciate all the work that you've been doing over, coming up on 10 years. That's fantastic, and I hope that you have a lifetime ahead of you within the organization and the success that you're having with healing our community and bringing people to this incredible thing. We focus a lot on here, and I would be remiss if we didn't touch on it for a moment. We talk a lot about the veteran, right? And for a lot of reasons, right? That's demonstrably our community. But when we think about the first responder, when we think about the law enforcement officer, here in the military, we like to fancy ourselves on the combat side of things, right? And we say, oh yeah, combat, right? Well, let's really distill that down, right? That combat, comes in short little bursts, it's a variable, right?
Yep.
When we look at law enforcement and first responders, every day they're seeing destruction. They're seeing the worst of humanity. In some respects, they see the best. They probably are the best in those circumstances. But they live a incredible tough life.
Yeah.
Right? And now you've got aspects of the community that are saying, defund the police. We don't want we don't want our neighbors, making sure that we're safe anymore.
Yeah.
Right. What are some of the challenges that you see, as these individuals come through the program? And is it very similar to what the military aspects are, or is the dichotomy different?
What I've seen whenever it comes down to, so externally, back to combat, like, man, whether it's Baghdad or Baltimore, a gunfight's a gunfight.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It's, but what a lot of problems with the law enforcement in seeking healing, even in saying coming to Warrior's Heart, like a lot of those guys, they put us military guys on a pedestal, you know what I mean? Because they respect us and the combat aspect and everything. And it's all true on that combat piece, but they minimize their own,
correct,
their own what they've been through, right? Because they put us up so high. That's what I've seen a lot of. What most law enforcement and first responders have to deal with is first minimizing their own trauma. Like, trauma is trauma. Right. Experience or experience. It doesn't matter. I do it too. Like, it would be like, oh my God, Tom, you did all these things. I would be like, yeah, but this guy I know, right. So it's kind of with the culture, but with law enforcement, that's one of the biggest feedbacks that I hear when, number one, they've sought help, meaning out at Warrior's Heart, is how the military guys, when they started trying to minimize their own, well, I wasn't in combat like you guys. And I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here. Like, they basically deployed minimum 2 times every day. Like, when they leave the house in the morning, that's on a deployment, because now their loyalty chain is shift. They got to be there for their guys. They're putting it on the line. They could have been in a gunfight that day, or some horrific environment, or some worst case scenario like a car wreck where children are involved, all of that, and now come home. Like when you mentioned, when we come home with dealing with our children, we had a little bit of a separation, and we were in a different country.
Yeah.
It was a struggle, but now they're having to do it within a 12-hour period every day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Significantly harder in my book than what we did. Yeah. Again, I'm not minimizing myself and what I did, but it just, whenever I spent 5 years training law enforcement before Warrior's Heart, that was the biggest thing, man. It's like, no, man, guys bitch about the VA, right? But they don't even have a VA.
Yeah.
Like, the life expectancy of a retired cop is 5 years.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? The suicide rate is ridiculous. So back to the question of, even though a combat veteran and a stateside paramedic have very different physical experiences, the things that are eating us up inside and create shame, guilt, remorse are exactly the same. Yeah. Man, the location and the acts, irrelevant when it comes down to what we're talking about. And you see that bond occur immediately on the property. You know what I mean? But that's what, but I can't, there is no harder job in my book than law enforcement in the United States of America.
Yeah. Yeah, think about this. This is a staggering number I learned, right? There are less than 1 million uniformed police officers on the streets at any given point in America. We have 338 million citizens, right? So these officers, on average, one officer is making 30,000 contacts a year. Imagine meeting 30,000 people a year, Tom. There's no way. There's
I
no
can't
way.
even
And then writing a
comprehend it.
report on every single aspect. And if we were saying that these people aren't overworked, and we were saying that that they're not overstressed and undertrained and all these other things, you're right.
Yeah, it's the math. You
Right.
can't argue with math,
Exactly.
right? Like
Right.
you just gave the math. Like,
And there was a time in our country where our school systems, right, would put forward a police officer as a member of your community, as somebody to be looking up to and saying, this person is here to protect and serve and is going to be
Honorably.
Honorably,
Yeah.
right? And here for you, right? We've walked so far away from that today, right? And we are doing no service to these individuals that are wanting to step into that line of work today.
Yeah.
And those that are currently on the line doing the work to make sure that our house doesn't burn down, that we don't get shot up at a gas station.
yeah. And again, back to the upside downness. That's the only word that I can think of. And yet those same people that are trying to dishonor, no institutions, humans are humans, horrible mistakes happen.
Yeah.
I'm not discounting any of that. And they are still those same people that are trying to take from them and downplay and all that. When they are in an emergency, we'll call them for help.
Mm-hmm.
Like we always say, we make a 911 call, like from Tom Spooner to hit 911, like I am experiencing the worst case scenario that could ever happen in my life, more than likely with my family or someone that I love. And my expectation is that they're going to come to the rescue.
Yeah.
And they do.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. You know what I mean? So now when these folks, based because of the job description and the what happens on the job, now they need help. Like, who's coming to help them? Number one, they're not even supporting them while they're on the job.
Right.
So for sure, they're not going to try to support them, when they're off the job, which again comes back to it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
But it is, man, I preach about that all the time whenever I'm around law enforcement guys, man. There is no more honorable, no more harder. I couldn't do that job.
Yeah, there's no way.
No. I mean, people start spitting at me and talking smack or whatever, like I'm not gonna
I'm gonna be on the other side of the law.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's different. But those guys, they have to take it.
Yeah.
They have to be able to act appropriately, and they're undertrained for that, and they're not, under budgeted, and the requirement that is asked of them is exactly still the same, man.
Yeah. And there was something there that you said that I really liked as well. When they wake up and they get into the car, right, and they're on their way to that first deployment, right,
Yep.
for the day, right, and their loyalty is changing.
Yep.
Right? They have to change that loyalty because now they're in the uniform,
Yep.
and it's my brother and my
Yep.
sister, that we're on patrol together, or we're in the same squad, whatever the case may be. A little bit different, than the military individual, right?
Yeah.
That I could not imagine living like in that paradigm.
Yeah.
To turn it on and turn it off every 12 hours.
Yeah.
For 20 plus years.
Can't even, I'm not built for it. I mean, I had enough struggle, like going to other countries and doing, like we said, the military experience, but being able to do that and navigate that emotionally, mindset wise, like there's not a day, I would imagine, not really a day on a job whenever something horrible doesn't happen. Again, I just go back to, guys that are wired that way on the force, like getting in gunfights, and like, hey, they're kind of wired that way too. They're that's not hard for them. Like they're kind of built for them. But the car wrecks, man, like the crimes against children. You know what I mean? Like like they, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And they do it every day. There's groups of them that are keeping us safe the best that they can under the most horrible, unsupported conditions.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's fucking nuts. Bless their hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, law enforcement
Most importantly,
out there.
thank you.
Yeah, like we mean it. Can't speak for the rest of it, but there's a large, and I used to always say, man, there is a huge, at least 50%, which is a lot of Americans that fully support them, man. 100%. And we know that the loudest is what gets the most coverage. But just so I always tell them anytime I'm speaking or talking with them, it's like, hey man, that's occurring, but also know this, there's a bunch of them like, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For what you do every single day. I mean, big deal. Even whenever we were deploying, the only reason why I could deploy was because I didn't have to worry about my family.
Right.
Because we had U.S. law enforcement, man.
Right.
Like, yeah, I can't speak enough about it, man.
I'm in the same boat. It's incredible work that the men and women of this country do, right? When putting on a uniform of any, caliber.
Any
right?
caliber.
It speaks to the character of the nation that we have here and the people of it. And for that, I'll be, grateful to be an American.
Me too.
So, for those that are interested in learning more about Warrior's Heart, being involved in donations or things of that nature, how could people learn more about your organization?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to go to warriorsheart.com. It's got all of our information on there, and if you need to call somebody, there's our hotline number is on there. As far as if you have any questions or if you want to ask for a friend. Or anything like that, just call and talk to the missions advocate, man. Have a conversation.
Yeah.
That piece of it for folks that want to donate. We have Frontline Healing Foundation, which their mission is to support, mitigate treatment costs for folks suffering from chemical dependencies, self-medication, which there's not many organizations that do that. I mean, Gary Sinise Foundation helps us a lot. Avalon, there's a lot of organizations that assist with it, but and the biggest thing that anyone can do is help us spread the word. A lot of warriors that come through, they're like, man, I didn't hear of it, until obviously they did, so that would be the biggest thing is, hey, let's talk about what's going on with our communities and stuff. And, man, and just to let everyone out there know, like, hey, you're not alone. Feels that way, thinks that way, but it's not, man.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Come join the tribe, man. We're still getting after it.
That's right. I mean? It's doing it a different way. It's a different battlefield now. I failed to mention when I was there visiting my friend, there were two other individuals that had come up to me that I have known over the years that were in the program as well. And they're like, Tim, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing here?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, that was pretty cool. I mean, three people that I know in the program when I was there visiting, like, ladies and gentlemen, Warrior's Heart is the real deal. Yeah. It is the organization that our community is finding solace in. And, if it's not something that you need, share it on your social media platforms. There might be somebody in your network that this speaks directly to, or there might be somebody that's willing to write some nice checks to the organization and help, to keep the thing going, right?
That's right.
Because, all 501cs need, motivate, that recurring revenue to keep the operation going. So with that being said, my friend, Tom, I want to say thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for seeing the impacts on my friend. You gave him the tools to do the hard work, and it's working for him, and it saved his life. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. And you'll always be a friend of ours here at Grunt Style for the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. It's my honor and privilege, and gratitude to be able to do it. And thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for everything that you and Grunt Style is doing for our community. It's good teamwork.
That's right. Teamwork makes the dream work, everybody.
That's right.
That's it. And that's it for us today at American Grit. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Share it with everybody that you know on your social platforms. And, maybe put a hashtag Warrior Heart on that shit and send it around. Until next time, you know what to do. Be kind to one another and wash those stinking hands. We'll see you soon.